Hospital ship. Admiral Morgan's voice carried across the room like the crack of a gavel. Around the war table, the officers and advisors exchanged uneasy glances. No one wanted to be the first to respond, but the silence only stoked the Admiral's rising fury. Morgan's laugh was sharp and bitter. I suppose next they'll say our surgeons were hiding grenades in the anesthetic tanks. Commander Duggan, his second-to-in-command, leaned forward, clearing his throat. This isn't just an act of aggression, sir. It's a declaration of war. The Zealon know exactly what they've done. And what's that? Morgan's eyes bored into Duggan, daring him to elaborate. They provoked the entire Terran fleet. Well, am I waiting on a translator, or do my ears still work? He barked. It's confirmed, sir, said Lieutenant Harper, his voice steady but tight. The Solace, operating under full medical designation, was ambushed by a Zealon raiding party near the neutral zone. No survivors. Morgan's hand came down on the table with a force that rattled coffee mugs and sent a few loose data pads clattering to the floor. The holographic projection of the neutral zone flared briefly as his feast disrupted the sensors. A hospital ship marked lit up like a damn Christmas tree for every sensor in 10 light years. The scenes claimed it was carrying weapons, Harper added reluctantly. Morgan's laugh was sharp and bitter. I suppose next they'll say our surgeons were hiding grenades in the anesthetic tanks. Commander Duggan, his second-to-in-command, leaned forward, clearing his throat. This isn't just an act of aggression, sir. It's a declaration of war. The Zealon know exactly what they've done. And what's that? Morgan's eyes bored into Duggan, daring him to elaborate. They've provoked the entire Terran fleet. The Admiral's jaw tightened. I wager that was the idea. The Zeons were not strangers to brinkmanship. The insectoid species, with their hive-like structure and propensity for territorial expansion, had been circling Earth's colonies like wolves around a wounded elk for decades. Skirmishes in the outer systems were frequent, though rarely did they escalate beyond the occasional destroyed patrol ship. But this was different. Hospital ships were sacrosanct, a universal taboo that no species, not even the Zealon, had ever broken until now. Have we issued a formal protest? Morgan asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, sir, Harper said. The Zealon Council responded with a statement, if you can call it that. Morgan snorted. Let me guess. They deny everything, claim the ship was trespassing, and threaten retaliation if we breathe too hard in their direction. Harper nodded. Pretty much, sir. The Admiral stared at the holographic map, watching the Zealon-controlled sectors pulse in sickly green. The neutral zone was a thin buffer between their space and Earth's, an uneasy truce, upheld more by mutual exhaustion than diplomacy. And now it seemed the Zeons had decided they were done pretending. What about the Council? Morgan asked. Have the diplomats started wringing their hands yet? The United Terran Assembly is convening an emergency session, Harper said, but the mood is divided. Divided over what exactly? Morgan raised an eyebrow, disbelief evident in his tone. Morgan stood on the bridge of the Resolution, the fleet's flagship, watching as ship after ship joined formation. The view was both inspiring and sobering. He knew the cost of what they were about to. Lives would be lost, resources drained, alliances tested. But the alternative, doing nothing, was far worse. They slaughtered civilians, sir. Doctors, nurses, people whose only weapon was a scalpel, Harper said. Some members are advocating for restraint. Duggan interjected, his tone carefully neutral. They're worried about escalating the conflict. Morgan's laugh was short and mirthless. Escalation? The Zeons escalated the moment they fired the first shot. Restraint won't save us. It'll just make us look weak. The room fell silent again. Morgan's reputation was well known, was a strategist first and foremost, a man who believed in decisive action. The idea of restraint wasn't in his vocabulary. Prepare the fleet, he said finally. We'll convene in New Bastion in 24 hours. Dutton hesitated. All due respect, sir, but shouldn't we wait for the Assembly's decision? Morgan's eyes narrowed. I don't need a committee to tell me when our people have been attacked. We're not going to sit on our hands while the Zeons rewrite the rules of war. Understood, sir, Duggan said, though his expression betrayed a flicker of unease. The meeting adjourned, and the officers filed out, leaving Morgan alone with a holographic map. He traced a finger along the edge of the neutral zone, the lines blurring beneath his touch. This wasn't just about revenge. The Zeons were testing them, probing for weaknesses. If Earth didn't respond, the next attack wouldn't be on a hospital ship, it would be on a colony. Morgan straightened, his decision solidifying. They had shown mercy before. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The fleet mobilized with a speed that surprised even its most seasoned officers. Battle groups from every sector converged on New Bastion, a fortress world on the edge of Terran space. The docks buzzed with activity as crews loaded munitions-fueled warships and conducted last-minute inspections. The scale of the operation was unprecedented. Earth had not assembled a fleet of this size since the war with the Kara Coalition decades earlier. Morgan stood on the bridge of the Resolution, the fleet's flagship, watching as ship after ship joined formation. The view was both inspiring and sobering. He knew the cost of what they were about to do would be lost resources, drained alliances tested, but the alternative, doing nothing, was far worse. Status report, he barked. Fleet is at 90% readiness, Harper said, his fingers dancing over a console. Remaining ships are en route. Good. Notify me the moment we're at full strength. Aye, sir. Morgan's gaze returned to the viewport. Beyond the fleet, the stars glittered cold and indifferent. It was a stark reminder of how small they were in the grand scheme of the universe. But small didn't mean powerless. Sir, Harper said, breaking the silence. Message from the assembly. Morgan turned, his expression unreadable. Let me guess. They're ordering us to stand down. No, sir. Harper's voice carried a note of surprise. They've authorized full military engagement. Morgan allowed himself a brief smile. About time. The fleet's orders were clear. Push into Xelon space, eliminate any resistance, and deliver a message that Earth would not be trifled with. Morgan knew the risks. The Xelon were formidable adversaries, the airships, faster and more maneuverable than Terran designs. But Earth had one advantage: its people. Humans were resourceful, tenacious, and above all united in the face of a threat. As the Resolution powered up its main engines, the fleet began its advance. Morgan watched the stars shift their positions, distorting as the ships entered faster than light travel. The neutral zone, and beyond it, the Xelon frontier awaited. This isn't just about the Solace, Morgan said, more to himself than anyone else. It's about making sure no one ever does this again. The officers around him said nothing, but their silence spoke volumes. The weight of the mission hung heavy in the air, unspoken but understood. Earth had answered the call. Now it was time to see if the Xeons were ready for the consequences. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a wall of steel and firepower that stretched across the black void. Morgan stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the tactical readouts. The Xelon border station, a spindly construct of dark metal bristling with weapons, loomed ahead. It was a formidable outpost, but it stood no chance against the full might of the Terran fleet. Bring us within range, Morgan ordered. Let's make it clear we're not here to negotiate. The engines of the Resolution thrummed as the ship searched for its escorts, maintaining tight formations on either side. On the tactical display, the Xelon station began to stir. Energy readings spiked as its weapon systems came online, and a swarm of smaller Xelon ships launched from its docking bays, moving to intercept the fleet. Enemy vessels are locking weapons, Lieutenant Harper reported. Fighter class and corvettes. No capital ships detected. Morgan allowed himself a small grim smile. Good. They don't know what they're up against yet. The Xeon strategy was predictable. They were counting on their speed and maneuverability to harass and pick apart the Terran fleet. But Morgan had anticipated this. His ships weren't just bristling with firepower, they were equipped with cutting-edge targeting systems designed specifically to counter the Xelon hit-and-run tactics. All ships' defensive formations, Morgan commanded. Prioritize fighter squadrons. Hold fire on the station until I give the word. The fleet responded with precision born of rigorous training. Terran vessels shifted into overlapping defensive grids, their point defense turrets swiveling to track the incoming Xelon ships. The first wave of enemy fighters broke formation, scattering to avoid the withering hail of fire from the fleet. Bright flashes lit the darkness as several Xelon ships disintegrated, their debris tumbling away into the void. Minimal damage to our ships, Harper reported. The countermeasures are holding. Morgan nodded, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The Xelon fighters were regrouping, but their losses were mounting. They were beginning to realize that the Terran were no longer the reactive force they had faced in past skirmishes. This was a new era of warfare, and Earth had come prepared. Status on the station, Morgan asked. They're holding position, sir, Commander Duggan reported. Their weapons are powered up, but they haven't opened fire yet. Looks like they're waiting for us to commit. Waiting for us to make a mistake, Morgan mused. While they're in for a surprise. The Resolution locked its targeting systems onto the Xelon station. The station's weapons flashed to life, but they were too slow. The Resolution fired a devastating salvo of plasma rounds, each shot finding its mark with deadly accuracy. The station's shields flickered, flaring bright with energy, but they could not hold. With a final deafening explosion, the station's reactor detonated, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Station neutralized, Harper confirmed. Morgan exhaled slowly. Now let's finish what we started. The fleet surged forward, moving to secure the system. But as the ships pushed deeper into Xelon space, the tactical readout shifted again. More Xelon ships appeared, this time larger, more heavily armed. The Xelon were not backing down, they were regrouping, preparing for a full-scale retaliation. Morgan's lips curled into a grin. Prepare boarding teams. We're sweeping that station for intel. The countdown began, the final phase of their operation. And as the fleet moved deeper into enemy space, Morgan knew that this war would change everything. Ready yourselves, gentlemen, Morgan said. The real fight is just beginning.